Now, this is going to be fun. Today, I'm ranking the top 50 players in the game today. So, as always, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. It's year three of doing this. Let's go. Now, over the last 5 weeks on the channel, we went through every single position, given my top 10 and some honorable mentions along the way. You're going to see a lot of those names on the list today. But the criteria over the 3 years doing player rankings, they've always been the same, whether based on impact, numbers, advanced numbers, impact on winning, or overall just moments. What have you done for me in the last year or so of basketball? So basically, the last version of them that we saw, who's better, this player or that player? Pretty simple, right? Now, honorable mentions. We have guys like Desmond Bane, now in Orlando. Mikal Bridges, great year, especially a playoff run. Amen Thompson, young, but man, is he rising. And then we have a defensive duo there in Minnesota. Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert has helped that team to 2 straight Western Conference Finals, and we're going to have 2 more Timberwolves on the list today. But moving into the top 50, all these numbers and arrows that you're going to see in the middle of your screen, they are all relative to prior year's list. For example, we have guys like Zach LaVine, who dropped a spot from last year's list to this year. We also have 8 new debuting players that have never been on this list before, and we see 3 of them here at the bottom of the list. So let's get into it. 50 is Deni Avdija, one of the lone bright spots there in Portland, a roster that has so many young, nice pieces. But Deni, I think, took a step above the rest last season, and he's going to be a staple on this list for years to come. He's a Walmart version of Luka Doncic. Following him, we have guys like Scotty Barnes, who had a big drop from last year's list. Injuries played a part in that. 2 guys that also debuted, Tyler Hero and LaMelo Ball. LaMelo's been close, so has Tyler Hero in years prior. However, they finally cracked the list. And then Zach LaVine at 46. A guy that was, hey, he went to Sacramento. It was an okay year, but that is really just a directionless franchise. Offensively, Zach LaVine's in a different conversation. 45 is Chet Holmgren. Following that will be Derek White and Jarrett Allen. All 3 guys debut on my list today. And don't worry, we still have some higher debuting guys farther up the list. In fact, we have a record to talk about later on. Following the fro, we have guys like Jamal Murray and Tyrese Maxey, lead guards with star bigs. Both of those guys are just as important as the Batman on the rosters because they give opposing teams different looks and they make the offense that much dangerous. Now, Tyrese Maxey drops because it was a down year in Philadelphia. I don't think Tyrese Maxey regressed as a player. Please understand that. But it was a down year, and this is a guy that I think next year, if we can get 40 to 50 games from Embiid, Tyrese might jump back into my top 25 or top 30 range. Now, for Jamal Murray, proven winner, I am actually higher on him than consensus. And then you have 3 defensive guys, Jarrett Allen, Chet Holmgren, younger bigs, but have such a huge impact defensively. And Derek White does it on the perimeter end of the game. But hey, out of these 3 guys, you can really flip-flop them any way you see fit. Next 5 of 36 to 40, it goes as follows. We have OG at the bottom of that with Darius Garland, 2 guys that have dropped out of my list in year 2. Now they're back, and they had pretty big impacts on 2 of the most dominant Eastern Conference teams last season. These are both guys that I think play such a huge part on their rosters in this year, right? I think both these teams are the clear frontrunners in the Eastern Conference, but which team can put it all together and stay healthy in the biggest moments? Well, Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell can only do so much. So we're going to need OG and Darius Garland to step up and step out and give this team and their teams that extra push over the top to win the Eastern Conference. Now, another guy that's on a sleeper team in the East is Franz Wagner, who debuts on this list at 38. It's so underrated as a facilitator, offensive scorer. It was a rough outing last year for the Orlando offense, but Franz and Paolo did all they could, and they kept that team afloat, made the playoffs, and even took a game off the defending champs at the time. 37 is Jaren Jackson Jr., Triple J, as some would call him in this space. But this is a guy that we know can do it all defensively. He's a former Defensive Player of the Year. But offensively, I think this guy took a step last year. He's averaging over 20 a game. His efficiency looked a little bit better, though it was shoddy at times. Regardless, this guy going into this year with no Desmond Bane and only Ja Morant now has more on his shoulders on the offensive end. So I'm excited to see what version and the aggression we get from Triple J there in Memphis next to Ja Morant. DeMar DeRozan, old, but he is timeless as far as his scoring dominance here in the NBA. Does take a bit of a step back, dropping 7 spots, but DeMar DeRozan, again, has a timeless game, and though it is not the modern 5-out style that you want to see out of a modern wing, this is a guy that you can still put out there with a bad team, a contending team, and I think you'll find value, especially on the offensive end with DeMar DeRozan. He's also improved dramatically as a playmaker since his time in San Antonio. Now, 31 to 35, you see some pretty big drops, and you see a big riser. We'll start here with the guys that have dropped. De'Aaron Fox at 35, got a change of scenery in the middle of last season, going to San Antonio, and then had some injuries that ultimately derailed his season. But now he has a young, fresh core around him, and potentially one of the greatest of all time, returning from a health condition in Wemby. So this team has all the potential in the world. New coach, fresh energy, and some fresh legs. They can make a run at things next year and be a playoff team. But De'Aaron needs to be healthy. He needs to be that veteran mouthpiece to keep this group on the right track. And as far as making some noise in the West, it doesn't happen if De'Aaron Fox is not out there helping this unit on a nightly basis. Now, Zion drops 14 spots. I think we can all agree that Zion is an uber talented player. And when he does play, he's a bowling ball, right? It doesn't matter if you're 7 foot or if you're, 6'2". He's going to put you in the post, hit you with that patented drop step, and throw up a layup, right? But for Zion Williamson, it came down to health, as we'll see with a former MVP later on in the list. Trae Young at 33 does drop a couple spots, but again, last year, you had some injuries with Jalen Johnson. You had some growing pains with some of the younger players. But this is a year where I think with Trae Young, you have the best constructed roster around you. It's now put up or shut up there for Trae Young. Are you a true number one option on a championship team this year? Will tell us all we need to know. At 32 is James Harden. Fear the beard. This is a guy that took Norman Powell and Ivica Zubac, 2 perennial role players, and got career years out of them last year. This is a guy in James Harden that had this roster at late in March, I think, last season. They won 17 of 18 games going into the playoffs. It was getting to a point where there were some analysts that had this team as a sneaky contender to win the conference. That is the impact that James Harden had. And heck, he even had a good first half of that series against the Nuggets. He climbs 10 spots from last year's list, despite being 400 years old. Fear the beard is still intact. And then Julius Randle. JR jumps a spot from last year's list. He got traded to Minnesota. He helps them get to the Western Conference Finals. And hey, to do that in the first year with a new group of guys around you and a new coaching staff, that's pretty impressive. You climb a spot. Into the top 30, we have a guy in Jimmy Butler that has a pretty big fall from grace. 16 spots from Jimmy. And am I overreacting to that playoff run from Jimmy? Potentially, because to be honest, that's why I dropped him so far down the list. When Steph Curry went down in that second round against the Timberwolves, we're like, okay, we just need to see when can Steph return, and in the meantime, can Jimmy keep us afloat? Ultimately, that was why they traded for Jimmy, to be that secondary star. In some sense of the word, give Steph Curry an off night here and there, because Jimmy can flip that switch, or at least we thought. He didn't do that, to put it lightly, and this was a team that pretty much was lifeless once Steph went down against the Timberwolves in that second round. So he drops a lot of spots because I don't know if that switch is still there for Jimmy, but I have the respect for him that he's still at number 30. I see a lot of people having him a lot lower. If Jimmy goes into next year and can be that Miami Heat version of himself, this is a guy that should be higher on my list next year. Just put it that way, because he's always been a guy that's more impact, more so than the numbers, right? For his former teammate, Bam, he drops 4 spots, and he's one a spot ahead of him at number 29. Look, he's a defensive monster, right? This is a guy that can legitimately guard multiple positions on the court, and he does it at an extremely high level. Now, going into next year, it is a full year now where Bam is the guy, right? Last year, of course, mid-season, Jimmy gets traded. Then they had to adapt. Now Bam goes into this year knowing I'm the guy. I'm the 1A on both ends of the court every single possession, every single night against every single opponent. So I want to see the aggression pick up from Bam Adebayo. I want to see if he can still, I guess, keep the defensive impact at a similar level from years prior. And if he can do that, I think not only he's an all-star, but he might be an all-NBA level player because we know that Erik Spoelstra is going to have this team being a playoff level team. So if they could be a top 6, top 7 seed with their veteranship on the roster, Bam's gonna have to be a huge reason because of that. So again, we could get an all-NBA third level season out of Bam this year. At 28, we have Jalen Williams, otherwise known as J-Dub, a guy that was such a key part and I guess role for the youngest NBA championship team ever in the Oklahoma City Thunder, who won it just a few months ago. This is a guy that just does it on both sides of the court. As you see, he rises 21 spots on my list, which is the biggest single season rise in the 3 years we've been doing this. He's such a special player. Now, I don't want to overrate him. I don't want to put so much pressure on him and say he's a top 15 player like a lot of other people are doing. Let's pump the brakes. Let's see him do it one more season at this level. And if he can, I think there's no doubt in my mind he should be in those conversations. But as of now, let's pump the brakes. At 27 is a guy that has done everything Jalen Williams has, but to a higher degree. Jaylen Brown does drop 11 spots. However, he was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He was the Finals MVP, and of course, an NBA champion. That goes without saying. Multi-time All-Star, again, great two-way player, but he just did it 2 years ago. So I don't want us to forget that, sure, last year wasn't pretty with the Celtics top to bottom, but I don't want us to quickly forget how dominant of a season Jaylen Brown had just 2 years ago. Some people were saying he was the best player on the Celtics, right? So let's not let one bad playoff run from JB completely blind us on how good he actually is. So he does drop on my list, yes, but he's still top 27 in the world. Now, at 26, am I underrating him? I think absolutely. However, I'm a Cavaliers fan and I like to underrate my players. Evan Mobley, EV4, 2 years ago when this Cavaliers team made a surprising run, made the playoffs, matched up with the Knicks in the second round, and then ultimately fluttered. We just kind of shrunk in the moment, and ultimately we went home early. The reason because of that was because Donovan Mitchell was the only one that showed up. Everybody else shrunk. They didn't show up for the moment, and they didn't have a great playoff outing. Now, this year, going into last year, I had a lot of questions with Mobley. I said, he needs to be that guy, right? We drafted him high in the draft. We need him to step up, be that second option on a nightly basis because Darius Garland is inconsistent. Evan Mobley did that. He had a great year to I guess in my estimation. He ultimately was the defensive player of the year, but he also took a step up offensively, especially in that playoff run, which is what I like to see. So going forward, he's only going to get better. He's only going to get more dominant, and it's only going to get more scary. The only thing we need now in Cleveland is for Darius Garland or Jarrett Allen to find a backbone and to step up in big moments. Because if they can, again, we could make a run at things next season. Now, moving into the top 25, this is the tier of guys where I think you look at them, they could be a first or second option on any championship level team, and it wouldn't shock us. You have guys like Pascal, Ja Morant, Alperen Sengun jumping 18 spots, Cade Cunningham, and Domantas Sabonis. Now, you see next to Cade, there's some history here. Cade Cunningham is the highest debuting player ever on the 3 years of doing these lists. Not only did he become undeniable this year, but he added life to a lifeless organization, a Detroit Pistons organization that has nothing but downs really in the last decade. This year was surely an up. Cade Cunningham brought them to the playoffs. They were a tough first round out, and ultimately they lost a tough first round series to the Eastern Conference runner-up. This is a roster led by Cade, who had career numbers across the board, by the way. This is a roster where if they can stay healthy with Ausar Thompson, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, they can be the next year's Pacers, right? Where they're a middling seed, 4, 5, 6 seed, but if the things fall in their favor, they can make a run. That's because JB Bickerstaff is so great at developing talent, and Cade Cunningham now has proven that he's a superstar. So this is a team that has it all to make a run, but can Cade lead the charge? They're only going to go as far as he takes them, and I'm excited to see if he can do that in a wide-open Eastern Conference. For Sabonis and Sengun, two guys that can be labeled as the baby Jokic of the league, But both guys are incredible facilitators. For one, in Alperen Sengun, he's now in a position with Kevin Durant next to him. So he has a closer now and maybe the best to ever do it. So this is a Rockets team that last year was the 2 seed on the back of Alperen Sengun. Now can they make a run? Alperen has to continue to progress to do that, and I have no issues and no, I guess, non-belief that he doesn't continue. Now for Sabonis, it's really a directionalist franchise, but he keeps them afloat. He's led the league in rebound for 4 straight years, and I just love Domantas Sabonis. For Ja Morant, he's let me down. Pascal, incredible second half of the year last year. You know, everybody wants to jump directly to the playoff run, but he really started to get the gears in the right direction after the midseason mark. So Pascal was the calm to the storm in multiple postseason comebacks. And this is a guy that has now been a top scoring option on 2 finals teams. And of course, he came away with 1. Last year, it was 1 game away. And who knows, if Halliburton stays healthy, Pascal might be sitting here with 2 rings. Now, top 20. And this is where it gets fun. This is where I think controversy sets in because we all have sentiments towards certain players. But let's get into it. 20 is Kyrie Irving. He's going to have an injury he's dealing with next season. If he comes back at the end of next year, and he can find his groove quick because this team has all the pieces to make a sneaky run in the West next year. Karl Towns is at number 19, jumping a lot of spots on the list. And this is a guy that in back-to-back years has made the conference finals with a different coach star, with a different organization, and of course teammates to go along with it. He's amazing, maybe the best outside shooting big we've ever seen, and he continues to play a big part. The only knock on his game, don't settle on the 3 ball as much, man. At 18, another guy that's dealing with injuries is Tyrese Halliburton, man. Tore his Achilles in Game 7 of the finals, put his leg on the line for his teammates last year. I've been on this train for as long as this channel has been around. Since he was in Sacramento, I've been a Halliburton supporter, so I was rooting for them last year in the finals. Ultimately, he got injured. I don't blame him for playing in that game. I just wish the injury didn't happen. At 17 is Devin Booker. To me, I've become more so of a Devin Booker fan every year since they lost in the finals. Now, everybody was against him. Everyone kind of hated Devin Booker for years there, especially when they were a really good team. But now it seems like people are just starting to disrespect Devin Booker and underrate him. This is a guy that I don't want that the lack of high tier success of the Phoenix Suns with the talent that they've had blinds you on the talent of Devin Booker. He's one of this generation's greatest scorers. He's an Olympic gold medalist. There's a reason he was on that team. And this is a guy that year in and year out has gotten better as a playmaker and defender, as well as giving you 25 to 30 a night. I love Devin Booker. He does drop a couple spots, but there's no doubt in my mind, on his best day, he could be a top 10 player in the world. Kawhi Leonard at 16. Last year, it was a step in the right direction. Last year, he was healthy, more so than he has been in years prior. He was there in the biggest moments late in the season and in the playoff run. Now, the playoffs didn't go as planned, but Kawhi Leonard just being healthy and on the court, he's one of the greatest players of all time for a reason. So, again, he's special when he's on the court, and the only reason he's been knocked down in years prior is because of the health concerns. But I'm happy to see he's healthy. Now it's into the top 15. These are guys that I think you can label as superstars. These are the guys that you want to put as the 1A of your franchise, and you are comfortable day in and day out knowing that they can lead the charge. At 15 is maybe someone I'm underrating personally, but at 15 is maybe the greatest impact defender we've ever seen, and he's only played about 120 games. Victor Wembanyama, a guy that's 7 foot 100, not only has dominated the league, but he's continued to progress. He quite literally has an unimaginable ceiling. Victor Wembanyama last year, career numbers across the board, got even more comfortable handling the ball and creating his own shot. I just hope he stays healthy, because if he continued to do so, this is a guy that could be on the trajectory to be the greatest of all time. Now at 14, I might get some heat for it, but I love him. P5, Paolo Banchero, a guy that last year on the worst offense in the league, because he dealt with injuries and Jalen Suggs and multiple on the roster. This is a team that had a lot of lineup mixtures throughout the season. But on the worst offense in the league, Paolo Banchero still went out there, had an incredible season, led this team to the playoffs, and even took a game off the defending champs at the time. Paolo continues to progress in his career. I love to see it. And this is a guy that is an all NBA level talent year in and year out. Is this maybe because my favorite player of all time is Carmelo and I see that in Paolo? Maybe. But I think this year, now with the addition of Desmond Bane and the healthiness of Jalen Suggs, now we can get really a full picture of what Paolo can be as a number one option on a contending roster. I just hope they can stay healthy, and I want to see what Paolo could do because I think he can be the number one guy on a championship team because of what he does on both sides of the court. By the way, he gets underrated as a defender. I don't understand where that hate comes from. At 13, when you talk about defenders, Anthony Davis is one of the greatest to ever do it. Last year, of course, gets traded in the middle of the season, maybe the craziest trade of all time, to Dallas. And this is a roster that the year prior made the finals. So Anthony Davis is not only in a new situation, but he has new teammates, new coaching staff, and he has the pressure on his shoulders to get this team back to where they were. But unfortunately, of course, Anthony Davis went down with an injury. When he's healthy, one of the best in the world. And this year, I'm just hoping that he can stay healthy for one, but for two, keep this team in the mix. Because if Cooper Flagg is as advertised, we know this team has incredible depth around them, a lot of great veterans, great coaching staff. And then if you can keep them in the mix and Kyrie returns, by the time the playoffs come around, this team could be the scariest middling to play-in level seed maybe ever in the play-in era, right? Into the top 12, these are all guys that could be top 10, right? If you want to swap one player here, one player there, I completely understand. But whether by the littlest of reasons, I have my top 10 where it is, and we'll get to that when we get to it. And number 12 is the former MVP, maybe the most talented offensive scorer at the center position we've ever seen in Jojo Embiid, a guy that 2 years ago was averaging 35 and 13 with all NBA defense and was by far and away the MVP of the league. I know last year was injury riddled. I know last year they had the expectations of making a run, but Jojo only played 19 games. Now, the injury sucks. Yes, the continued injuries suck with Joel Embiid. However, he's still an incredible player. He's still very talented. And this is a guy that on his best day can single-handedly be a top 5 player in the world. Last year, I had him at number 4 after his MVP run. That's how talented he is. But due to his health continuing to be a problem and the fact that he's never played over 60 games in a season, so with that fact, I don't know how you can ever consider this team making a run at the finals. He does drop down to number 12, but if these rumors are true, that his career might be over, I'm sorry to hear that about Joel Embiid because, man, injuries are the worst part of sports. Now, at number 11, I'm going to get some controversy for, but Kevin Durant, maybe the best scorer this game has ever seen. Maybe the best go-to scorer. I guess if you need a shot for your life, maybe Kevin Durant's the best option to do that. This is a guy that is a multi-time champion, multi-time finals MVP. Again, one of the greatest players of all time, period, right? But I think for the smallest of reasons of there's a player number 10 that can score maybe at a tier below him, but at number 10 you have a guy that's a better defender, better playmaker, better leader, and he's done that. Again, he's just had his team at a higher level than Kevin Durant has in previous years with Phoenix, where Phoenix has had talent. They just haven't put it all together, and Kevin Durant does deserve some blame and critique for that as the leader of the team. However, Kevin Durant, again, can be a top 5 player in the world on his best day, but I think the top 10 players in the world are just solidified at this point in time, and I think they are just ultimately better than Kevin Durant, and that doesn't mean that the players on your screen now are bad players. I just think that the top 10 is simply better. That is enough, I guess, beating around the bush. Let's talk about it, man. I am a homer, yes, but I typically on this channel, in the 3 years of it, I have always underrated my players by a large margin. I'm done doing that. At number 10 is Donovan Mitchell, a guy that, like I just mentioned a moment ago, is a better, defender, better playmaker, leader of a team than Kevin Durant. Now, scoring, it's a little bit worse, but he can still score with the best of them. Donovan Mitchell went to a Cavaliers roster that was young, and he brought that directionless franchise post LeBron James to eventually a 60-win number one seed season in Cleveland. That's the first time it's happened in years, especially if LeBron James was not on the roster. Donovan Mitchell's special. The only reason that this team has not gone further in the playoffs the last few years is because Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen don't show up in the biggest moments. If they can get one of those guys to step up with Mobley, this is a Cavaliers roster that I think not only dominates the NBA next year, but I think they go to the finals. And at that point, anything can happen. But at number 10, again, I'm sticking by him. He's my guy, Donovan Mitchell, at number 10. And number 9 is a guy that has led another directionless organization, an organization that has not had much success in their tenure in the Minnesota Timberwolves, to 2 straight Western Conference Finals with different co-stars. That is a very impressive stat. Anthony Edwards, we knew for years in his early career that he's a great slasher. He's a great mid-range scorer. But can he eventually add that 3-ball game to his game? Well, he did. This is a guy that last year took it upon his shoulders with the addition of Julius Randle to not only, become a great 3-point shooter, but he made the most threes in the regular season last year. This is a guy that shot a career high from beyond the arc, and ultimately he just became more unguardable, as if that was even possible. So Anthony Edwards, to be the leader that he is, the two-way player that he is, and to get this organization that before his arrival was really just, hey, we had a lot of young players, but we're not going anywhere with it. Now enter Anthony Edwards. He has them to 2 Western Conference Finals appearances and 3 playoff appearances in just a few years. Anthony is special, and he is at number 9. I think you can put him as high as number 7. At number 8 is Jalen Brunson, another guy that has led his team to conference finals appearances, a guy that is an undersized guard, and maybe that's what's giving him the edge in this argument. But to me, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the craftiness, if it's the late game shot making ability and take over ability. I don't know what it is about Jalen Brunson, but when I watch him, I just think, man, there's not too many players better than number 11 in New York. This is a guy that just does it all. And there's so many nights in the regular season where there's nobody else on this roster that is, willing to take those big time shots or making any big time shots. And Jalen Brunson is forced on night in and night out to go out there and put it all on his shoulders. And this is a team that relies on him, and he does that. He was the clutch player of the year. Jalen Brunson's special, man. Again, I can't really pinpoint the exact reason why I put him over Anthony Edwards, but I just do. Maybe it's just strictly the eye test. Jalen Brunson is special to watch, and I love him at number 8. At number 7, this might be his last year, and maybe it's the greatest player of all time, LeBron James. We all know the shtick about LeBron James. We know how great of a player he is. We know his flaws, his pros, everything about LeBron. But I think the thing that I want to point out in this ranking video is that this might be his last year. If it is, LeBron to me, if not one, he's the second greatest of all time. And I'm just excited to see that with the complete roster that they have, can they put it together? Can Luka and LeBron now with a full off season maximize each other's ability and go out there and be a top 3 seed in a loaded West yet again, and this time get out the first round. Give LeBron that opportunity to be that playoff LeBron again and make a deep run at it to get ring number 5. I would love to see it if it's not my Cavaliers. Of course, I have a special connection to LeBron. So, again, sentimentally, it would be fun to see him get another ring. But ultimately, number 7 in your 444th year is not a bad ranking at all. And number 6, yes, he's injured. Yes, he's not playing all of next season. And yes, he does get in a crazy amount of hate. I was trying to find an adjective there, but I couldn't. Jason Tatum on 2 sides of the court has done everything that you could potentially want out of a player in his 7 or 8 year career. Jason Tatum has the most playoff wins since he's entered the league. He's been on many finals level teams, and he's actually won an NBA Finals just 2 years ago on one of the best finals teams we've ever seen. By the way, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm this big Jason Tatum stan or big Celtics fan. I'm not any of those things. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of JT. But what he's done on both sides of the court is amazing, and this is a guy that, sure, despite the shaky shot decisions that he has at times, He's been the leader on a esteemed organization with all the pressure in the world from day number one to now, and he has delivered on most of those calls. So at number 6, speedy recovery. I didn't say that for Halliburton, but speedy recovery to Hallie as well. But now we move into the top 5. This is where things get shaky, right? But I think I'm honestly very happy with the list that I've put together today. And hopefully there are no arguments. At number 5, we have the greatest shooter God's ever created, Stephen Curry. And perhaps no players had the gravity that Steph Curry has on a nightly basis. But outside of the gravity that a lot of people like to point out, he's just an incredible leader. This is a guy that you don't make it to the finals, 6 times on accident, like Steph Curry has in his career. He is the life of Golden State, and you saw it last year in the playoffs. Despite trading for a co-star in Jimmy Butler, or so we thought, this team fell apart when 30 wasn't on the court because they revolve around the outside shooting ability of Stephen Curry. So again, Steph Curry is so special. I think this is the lowest he's ever been on my rankings. So at number 5, it's a fitting place for Wardell Stephen Curry. At number 4, is the reigning MVP. And I know this is going to raise some eyebrows. Oh, and how do you have 2 years back-to-back where the reigning MVP is only the 4th best player in the world? I'll tell you why. Because for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it was an incredible season to lead the youngest NBA Finals team ever to win the NBA Finals, right? To be the MVP, to be the scoring champ, to be All-NBA first team. There's not many seasons individually that are better than what Shai just put out there on tape and on the floor for all of us fans to see on a nightly basis. Shai had an incredible season, and I'm not taking that away from him. However, when I do these rankings, it is sustained success. That is really the biggest driving factor in where I have players on this list. For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, incredible season. I love the player. I'm not one of those people that will bash him for how he scores the basketball. If me and you were NBA players, we'd be doing the same exact thing. We'd be trying to find any, little loopholes where it can give us an edge. So Shai is an incredible player. I'm so happy that he brought an organization their first title, and there's not many bad things you can say about the season he just put together. But at number 3 is maybe my favorite player in the world, Luka Doncic, a guy that last year got traded in the middle of the season. And I have had these arguments. I've had these debates. There's no telling that this guy couldn't have led that Mavericks team last year with the added depth that they had back to the NBA Finals. Now, unlike Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka did make the finals, but he didn't win it. Now, granted, he was playing a team that was way better than the Pacers, but he was also on basically half of a knee going into that final series. Now, for Luka Doncic, I can sit here and give you a 5-minute ramble on all these incredible accomplishments that Luka's had. This is a guy that, despite not winning a championship, he's done everything else. This is a guy that is so special, and there's perhaps not too many better players in history that can control the game like Luka can. And I just think that what he's done in the last, 3 or so years has been more impressive than Shai. And again, I guess you can come back with the argument of, the championship trumps all, and I can understand the argument, right? But for me, watching these two players play, given the context of Luka getting traded in the middle of the season, having to adapt to a new coach, I guess surrounding co-stars, that's all different, and that's all an incredible challenge. I just think that Luka Doncic now has a full season to prove me right. He now has a full season with LeBron James, a very deep roster, to go out there and win the Western Conference. I think they definitely are in the argument, and it's not going to happen unless Luka Doncic is motivated and he's ready to make a statement, getting either his first MVP or just making the finals and getting his first ring. I think one of those can happen this year for 77. Number 2 is Giannis, a guy that's done everything, right? Defensive Player of the Years. He's done MVPs. He's won the NBA Finals, bringing his franchises first, right? At least in some time. This is a guy, Giannis, that does everything, right? He's a bowling ball, a guy that is so powerful on both sides of the court, and that, is really reflected in his game. There's not really any downside you can say about Giannis outside of his three-point shooting ability. But this year, with Giannis, I think we're going to be able to see a historic level season, maybe like an 06 Kobe or a 2018 LeBron, where it's really them and who else on that roster And Giannis is going to have the opportunity in a weaker conference to be that superhero, kind of a player, leading his team through those tough series, night in and night out, and getting this team farther than they should. Because if you take Giannis off, they are maybe the worst team in the league. You keep them on it, and they have a chance at making the conference finals. That's how special of a player that 34, the Greek Freak, is. And at number one, it's been my number 1 and 2 for 3 years now. Someone come and take a spot from Giannis or Jokic. But Jokic is at number one. The same sentiment can be shared with Giannis, where in the last couple of years it's been Jokic, and who else can step up around him? He hasn't had that in those big time games unless they were playing the LA Lakers. For Nikola Jokic, he does everything. He checks all the boxes. He is an underrated defender, though he does have his laps, but he is maybe the greatest offensive center of all time. He's led his team to multiple deep playoff runs, including an NBA Finals. And now that he has a competent roster around him yet again, I think the Nuggets probably, given history in the Western Conference, they probably will win the conference and go to the NBA Finals. Jokic, despite having inconsistencies around him all up and down the roster, took the NBA champions to a 7-game series. So there's so much I can say about Jokic, but point blank period, he's the best player in the world probably for the next 2 or 3 years, unless some other player takes it from him, which I just don't see happening. But that's going to do it, man. A lot of long-winded answers and a lot of rankings. I think you can hear I might be losing my voice here. But hey, those are my top 50 players going into the NBA next season. As always, drop your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll converse with you as much as humanly possible. Now, I do want to say the NFL season's coming up, and I do have the award predictions this week. And then after that, man, week in and week out, we go through every single week of the NFL action and give you guys my predictions there. We also have Amir coming back on the show. I know you guys love him. But that's going to do it, man. Leave your thoughts down below. And until next year, man, it was a fun year.